Hi, I'm LadyJenevia. I said in last week's review that episode 7 would be an episode of revelations, and now we get to unpack them. There are 3 main revelations to go through, and then once we're finished with those, we can go back through and enjoy some of the other details of this episode that may or may not be as impactful to the story, so to speak. For example, I am obsessed with how good Boy Jordan's hair is every time they're on screen. Not that Girl Jordan's hair doesn't also look good, but every time I see Boy Jordan's hair, my brain starts screaming that whatever the salary of the staff in the hair department on this show is, it's not enough. Pay them more. We already know that Hollywood doesn't pay their actors and screenwriters the money that they deserve. You think the hair department is being paid any better? Certainly not. Actually, you know what? I figured out what Boy Jordan's hair reminds me of. Have any of you watched Uncanny Counter? If you know, you know. Revelation number 1, Dean Shetty's backstory. We finally learn what Dean Shetty is doing and why. Her family was on the flight Homelander brought down in season 1. And when I tell you I did a complete 180 on my sympathies after I hit these last 2 episodes, I mean that. Up until this point, I was very much operating from the perspective that Dean Shetty was a really cool villain, that actress Shelley Conn was serving a performance week after week, but I was very much rooting for the kids of Gen V. They're the core friendship group. They're the ones who we spend the most time with. They're the ones that the show wants us to empathize with. And to a certain extent, I still do. However, Dean Shetty might be taking things too far, but I absolutely do sympathize with her because I am so tired of everyone else in this universe facing more consequences than Homelander ever does. Wrap it up. It's getting repetitive at this point, and I want a conclusion. I don't need the story of these shows to drag out for 15 seasons, Eric Kripke. Homelander has never faced consequences for the plane incident or any other misdeed of his. He lasered the eyeballs out of Madeline Stillwell's head. He orchestrated the downfall of Stan Edgar, and Ashley is going to be completely bald before she ever figures out a way to be able to keep Homelander in line the way that those two somewhat did. Do I think an airborne contagion that targets the compound V in people's blood is an ideal solution to what's going on in this universe? Not really, but desperate times will create desperate measures. When you do clownery, the clown comes back to bite. And I, for one, am more insulted by the fact that they made Mallory the moral compass when it comes to Dean Shetty's actions. You expect me to believe that the CIA agent doesn't want genocide to happen. What a deeply unserious thing for this show to do. You cannot tell me a single person with power in the construction of this show's story knows what Operation Condor is and still has the audacity to make the CIA agent the one that is telling Dean Shetty that she's taking things too far. And you know what else? I would have much preferred for Dean Shetty's backstory to be what it was revealed to be if it had been framed in such a way where she specifically wanted to create this virus and use it to go after Homelander specifically, and was instead being advised by others in the scheme that she's being too reckless and risking the virus getting out and harming literally any other soup who had nothing to do with what happened to her family. That would have been a far more interesting, nuanced take on the material of how getting fixated on the revenge and not thinking about calculating the broader risks of your revenge plan, it could all just go awry and you're losing sight of who you are. It just came across real cartoony by the end of how her story has gone. I'm just saying it would have been a far more interesting and nuanced take on the material. Revelation number 2. Marie's benefactor, who has been mentioned before by Dean Shetty, is finally revealed to be Victoria Newman. This was such an interesting development because I think it makes all the sense in the world. All of us probably should have figured it out immediately, but given how Victoria only really uses her powers for explosions and none of this cool artistic blood floating through the air stuff that Marie has been shown to do numerous times, that was such a clever way to lead up to the reveal still feeling like a reveal. And I so appreciated the way that Victoria was giving advice to Marie about how to use her powers, to sense the compound V in Victoria Newman's blood, all of that stuff. Now, I don't think Victoria Newman is trustworthy or morally upstanding at all. If anyone can even be said to be described that way in this universe, but that's another matter entirely. But I will say I'm intrigued by the idea of there being more interactions between Marie and Victoria in the future, if they could have some sort of orbital mentorship. And what I mean by that is they're usually off in their own corners of this story's universe, but once in a while, if their paths cross, maybe we get to have some really interesting mentorship, advice, but also philosophical debates. We can already see the rift that exists between them, the difference in their approach to their powers. Victoria is keeping to the shadows. She's very Fed-like, whereas Marie has so much goodness in her that she has to take action, even if it's not the safer, easier approach. She needs to try to do the right thing, and that is what I love about her. I love that she's the main character. I love that she's who we are sticking with, and ultimately, at this point, she is who I am most invested in. I know that some of you want me to talk about Marie and Jordan and how they're still being super cute in this episode, and we will get to that, but first, revelation number 3. Kate is now going on a rampage. There's something very Jean Grey about Kate getting off of these meds, accessing new levels to her powers, and then going on a murderous rampage. Up until this point, I've been right there with everyone else that is expressing so much empathy and compassion for Kate because of everything that happened to her as a child, how her family emotionally abandoned her, stopped giving her physical affection, all of that stuff. And I'm not by any means condoning Dean Shetty getting Kate to use her powers in the way that she has been shown to be doing over these years. However, I don't like that we're being positioned to have to pick a side between Dean Shetty and Kate when the real enemies are Homelander and Vought. This is so typical of the way that I've often observed a certain section of quote-unquote progressive spaces for socio-political issues where they focus more on infighting each other over silly things that don't matter instead of staying focused on the bigger picture, which is to go after the true evil causing all of the problems and harm on a systemic level. Kate and Dean Shetty are just directing this pain and energy and grief at the wrong people. And I'm not on either of their teams at this point, if you would like to even use those words. I'm on team, let's do to Homelander what was done to Jacques Legris at the end of the last duel. And if you've seen that film, then you know what I'm talking about. And seeing Kate force Marie to not help Dean Shetty while Marie is begging to be able to help her, and she's having visions of her mother in her last moments. Oh no, I will never look at Kate the same way again. I've had to bite my tongue about Kate ever since I was given these screeners for episodes 7 and 8 because, of course, I was not allowed to spoil what it is that she was going to do. But at this point, she's now crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. That's just my opinion. It's how I feel. You're saying in this moment that you're sorry to Marie, but I don't like your tone. You don't sound sorry enough. Marie told you exactly what happened to her as a child, and you still did that to her. And you want me to put you in a morally superior position above Dean Shetty? Nope. You're both wrong and foul, and at this point, I only care about my girls Marie and Emma, and I also only care about Jordan. That's what we need in season 2. I need the 3 of them to be the 3 musketeers. I can't even fully unpack everything that I have to say about Kate until we get to episode 8, so just stick things out with me for one more week, and then we will be able to come to some sort of conclusion for the time being, since the show has been renewed for season 2. Now, let's go through a few other points quickly. Marie and Jordan, still cute. We see how Jordan is still staying in boy form when making moves on Marie, but I do like that we've at least explained this to the audience in such a way where we can understand the bigger picture of what's going on with Jordan internally and how it affects their external actions. And I would love for things to just be magically good and cute between them, but it really wouldn't feel like a grounded development and progression of their relationship. I'm assuming that they will get to a point of being able to have that conversation with one another. But as you all can see with these 7 episodes, there's always so much other stuff going on that they never have time to just sit and talk. Even when they try to have a conversation, some sort of evil scheme is up and loud, and they have to go deal with that instead. Maybe season 2 could do something like extend the runtime of these episodes by at least just a few more minutes for them to have the time to explore these emotionally intimate moments and exchanges between the characters. And if you think you're upset about the runtimes right now, wait till you see how long episode 8 is. Do not come for me. Do not shoot the messenger. I do not make this show. I just talk about it on the internet. Another underrated Jordan moment, though. They decked that girl who put Emma's purging on social media. I love that for them. I want Emma and Jordan to become friends. I know a lot of you are concerned about getting more screen time between Jordan and Marie, and I'm not invalidating those feelings. I'm just saying I would also like for Jordan and Emma to get cute friendship time. I cannot believe that it took this long for someone to take action and have Emma's back like that, but now that it's finally happened, I'm very satisfied. I don't have a lot to say about Sam and Emma for once, just because of how little time they spent together in this episode, but Sam wearing Emma's panda pajamas, saying he liked them because they smell like her. Oh, the romance-loving lobe of my brain was yelling. I'll have more to say about Sam and Emma after episode 8, so let's just put all of that on pause until next week. Now, Miss Victoria Newman taking the virus. I'm sorry, I know she's the villain, but I just have to say that the musical needle drop at the end of this episode had me screaming and cackling the first time that I watched it. Everything she was saying on top of everything else we've seen her do on the first 3 seasons of The Boys, we knew that Dr. Cardoza was done for, but as soon as the musical intro started playing, I could not keep it together. You hadn't even heard the first lyric, Off With Your Head. Just hearing the musical intro sent me to the moon. I'm a sucker for a well-executed musical needle drop, and I will not apologize for that. Episode 8 might not have a long runtime, but when you see how eventful it is, you can know with absolute certainty that I will have plenty of things to say to close off this chapter of my channel output. So I will see you next week. Bye.